Welcome to this episode. I am your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. The nom de guerre or nom de plume, both are applicable within the literary context of the fictional world being created. And for those who are not aware, no judgment, no shame, nom de guerre and nom de plume are French phrases of common parlance in the literary world, regardless of base language being used, that reference to a sort of fictional name of the pen or for the war. Historical, cultural, linguistic reference to a period long before World War I believe, or perhaps precisely from World War I. I'll have to check that. Fact checkers, please fact check the fact checking on my own fact statements here. And by fact checkers, I reference my own, not anybody else's, because I have a little imaginary army of no one in my head pretending to... Listen, full disclosure, this is all a creative endeavor, which I'm endeavoring to do entirely free of any assistance and or any sort of bankrolling financial investment or capital investment by anybody at the moment. And open to such proposals given fair market value. Like if I could go on that one show where you pitch your idea to a bunch of quote unquote, billionaire investors, I would. I just don't know that they would want to hear about a book I haven't been able to finish writing yet. Because I don't know that they'd buy into it. But if I could get the investment money to bankroll like creating a studio where I hire some staff so that I can sit for 8 hours or 12 hours a day, which is my preferred work schedule, like 9.5 hours per day without commuting, right, from home, and pay people to like, I have this image in my head, please make it happen. I have this paragraph trying to get out, please help me write it, sketch it out, flesh it out, and then give back to me for edits and updrafting and cycle through. I'd be able to produce both the podcast on a daily basis and Wattpad pages on a daily basis and Sketchadoodle digital art on a daily basis and audio electronic musical entertainments for you folks on a daily basis. But seeing as I've been doing it entirely by myself, I apologize to you all because I often cannot quite get at it. Thus the giant almost in parentheses in all of my work. It's the Almost Daily Zencast, the Almost Daily live stream, the Almost Daily Wattpad experience, the Almost Daily art drop, whatever all of it. Okay, all those disclosures having been made and recorded for the record, I now am happy to present to you the actual content you came here to listen to. Origin Stories. Yes, sometimes with a Z, because that's in the home universe from our main characters, like, origin? Most words that end with an S end with a Z, because reasons. Because Z is important. At any rate, origin stories and the problematic issues thereof. Deep thoughts about creative writing and, like, movie making and industrial creativity. The problem with origin stories is that we've kind of played all the default, hero's epic journey, post-Freudian, postmodern, heteronormative origin stories out, right? And we've already critiqued on them self-referentially in all of our pop culture. And I'm doing specifically that. From the, playboy, billionaire, orphan, man-child archetype to all the forward, inclusive, new expressions that are joining the Mount Olympus of superhero and people, regular people hero, and anti-heroes, the whole cornucopia. It's hard to sit down and bust out a truly original and like deeply moving origin story. But it is my hope to perhaps stumble my way into crafting one that's at least authentic to itself and not too terribly derivative in its own right. beyond the scope of its open mockery, and sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Much love to all the creative geniuses that came before itself. Homage and reference, right? Sorry for any awkward noises as I adjust some of the instrumentation here, but I realized that both of these peripheral devices want their Storiez charging action. Is this the right one? I hope so. So I have not, as of yet, dear audience, presented a formal, clear-cut origin story for this character. In large part because there's too many, and I haven't really figured out a way to plot out like which one to start with. If anything, oh, there's an update, great. If anything, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, especially when like seen from the framework of eventually his sidekick, you know, he picks up a sidekick known as DJ Zed. They, because of the nature and structure of the fictional universes from which they hail, from which they originate, they have an ad nauseum of origin stories. They each, well, DJ Zed is a little bit straightforward, and I guess we should start there. But first, a note to self. I wish I had a way to both audio narrate and instantly text capture all of this at once simultaneously. To wit, that is my main like creative problem. I have like 3 different modalities of creative output. My hands are good at typing sometimes, and like my hands get writing blocked way too easy because my hands are like waiting for my brain to decide things about the world crafting. My brain has other issues. All of this is inherently true. Whenever I speak of myself, it's inherently true of like my real self and also the character. Oh, I shouldn't say always. When I'm in the flow like this and I speak in the first person, it should be advised, especially for anything labeled Wattpad or creative narrative development, etc. I'm weaving elements of real life, fact-based self-awareness and fiction. So take it with a huge grain of salt and acknowledge its fictionality. But truly, woe is me if I only had a system that would allow me to audio narrate and capture, like, voice to text. I can sort of do it. My phone is kind of good at voice to text now after however long I've had this particular device. But it poops out really quick. Whatever default voice to text stuff is going on in whatever app I choose to tinker with, I find that it's short, slowly narrated and clearly articulated bits get accurately captured. And if I get a little too flowy, a little too like organic with it, a little too like if I get caught up in sort of vision questing some interesting statement, it will totally hear me wrong. And I know there's some really bizarre sounding, totally awkward and irrelevant seeming like junk messages and or commentary that I've posted on social media throughout whatever platforms that are me not catching it because I trust it sometimes too blindly, and I like said something to a comment box, hit post, and didn't look at the voice to text results, and someone's like, what? He's talking about peanut butter jelly spaceship bergs that fly through, interdimensional fractal balloon art? Like, what? I don't understand. And it's because it will, and then it'll approach something that almost makes sense and then goes into, and it has a sense of humor. And I wish I could play games with it on purpose like that, but I digress. Put a pin in that idea, like the voice-to-text AI becoming a self-aware thing and that plays weird games with people. I say all that as a sort of stopgap filler as I prepare to capture the actual thing that is supposed to be like a paragraph that's going to be a Wattpad update to like pages. Okay, so I literally just wrote to myself, typed as you just heard, and I have a typo. I know how to spell that. My hands don't like this keyboard, but also my other keyboard takes up way too much space. Oh, it's everything's such a almost there, but not quite in terms of just letting it rip, but we're working it. The painful hustle is real. Like the self-inspiration bootstrap hustle is very, very real. Please reference all the memes on the internet about how to catch inspiration, how to create inspiration versus waiting around for it to just magically plop in your face. Here's the note I just wrote to myself. It's not supposed to say original stories, although I guess... Alright, I guess we can go story development. 000. The problem with origin stories with a Z. And that will be in whatchamacallits. I think the whole world has forgotten what these things are called, even though we still use them. Quote marks is technically correct, but there's an actual name. You know? Oh, speaking of which, how many years old were you when you encountered the mind-melting, fun fact, historical meme that there's a reason why uppercase, lowercase are the phrases that we use to represent, literally what they mean, the capital letter, like at the beginning of a sentence, right? You put a capital at the beginning of a sentence. The beginning of the sentence starts with a big T, to use the word in a sentence, and lowercase. The capital letter T, rest of the sentence lowercase, the rest of the sentence is in lowercase. And you end with a period, and you try to not type out the word when you're transcribing this audio later. But the reason we use that is because in the very, very beginning of the earliest days of typesetting, which is when we innovated language in the most massively world-changing way, we went from handwriting everything, and imagine what a tedium that is, and we'd already invented certain global paradigms about communication in written form, but when we solidified it into manufactured industrial movable type font, and people had to constantly, because there was no machine to do it yet, people had to constantly set that text by hand, letter by letter. There was the need for invention and innovation, and there was literally a box. And I love boxes. There's a pin on the board about boxes and how, I have a weird, strange, obsessive-compulsive fascination with them, and that if I lived in the most wealthiest of possible universes of my real-life self, I would own way too many antique, postmodern, and real-life, find-in-the-streets boxes. Cleaned up, tidied up, and made pretty, often probably, decorated in some sort of do-it-yourself at home, Whatchamahoozle store. Insert the proper name of this Whatchamahoozle store's, not brand name, but trade name, way. I'd have a bazillion boxes. I'd have way more boxes than I already do, cluttering up my already cluttered personal space. So yeah, this box that the typeface came in, when you opened it up, it was decided that the part that was on top, the hinge opened up and then rested on an easel sort of, thing, so it was easy hand reach. The top case was the uppercase and the bottom case was lowercase, and the small letters went down below and the big letters went up above. It blew my mind when I first saw that, because I was like, oh, duh. And it was one of those things like, how do I not already know that? And I must have heard it before, because it felt both like a mind-blowing revelation and somehow a comfortingly familiar, silly fact that I must have giggled at least once or twice as, a kid whenever I very first heard it. But then it, been lost. Okay, this is what I typed onto my digital screen, not having to use any of that, and thank God, because it would have taken infinitely longer, right? Original story development note, 000. Quote, the problem with origin stories. Take 2. Quote, the problem with origin stories. There you go. Use that second take, please, for posterity. And then it opens with the very first sentence of what I'm about to rough draft my way through here. Both live and sort of, I'll be pausing the tape so you don't have to tediously listen to me actually type. Although maybe I just should. And then play music there. Ooh, there's an idea. Because this will be a podcast episode. I just need to play it back. And can I play it back and play music? No, I'm going to have to cue the music, DJ Zed. And then actually edit it together and do something fancy in GarageBand, which will take 3 times longer. Okay. Take 17. Original story development note 000. Title, in quotes, the problem with origin stories. The problem with origin stories is, bracket, see recorded improvisational rough draft notes and insert here, close bracket. Suffice it to say, it's challenging and difficult to know where to begin.